New York State is forcing trucking companies to start the transition to electric semis. This, despite the cost and weight of the trucks and the fact there aren't any charging stations for commercial haulers. News at NBC investigative reporter Jennifer Lukey has been exposing all of these issues with this mandate for months now. And Jen, the state seems to acknowledge all of that. So why can't it just bag the idea or delay it?
Well, Nikki, it's not going to bag the idea because state lawmakers approved it and they eventually want to get to zero emissions for semis, school buses, transit. But realistically, no one is ready. The problem is New York can't change its law without California going first.
It would now take 60 of today's trucks to emit the same emissions as a single truck did in 1988.
But as we've been reporting, the progress isn't fast enough for the state of New York, which implemented the Advanced Clean Truck Rule in January. It requires dealers sell an electric semi before they can get credits to sell more diesel ones. Problem is, companies don't want EV trucks yet because, well, to start with, there's nowhere to charge them.
You know, the rule was adopted in 2021, and in 3 years' time, the state hasn't put any infrastructure in place.
Last week, we brought the concerns of local trucking companies to the state DEC, who told us it can't make changes here in New York until a state on the opposite side of the country does.
We're sort of adopting what California already has in place, and they need to make tweaks before we can make tweaks, right?
Right. So it gets somewhat complicated, but the short version of it is California has a waiver from the federal government that allows them to regulate vehicles outside of their borders. So because that waiver's in place, other states can adopt it, but they have to be identical. They cannot put something in place that's different from the language that was in that waiver. So the only way that New York can make adjustments to their regulation, which they adopted from that California waiver, is if California makes adjustments first. So,
or if the federal government pulls the waiver.
Correct. Yeah. Which, is being looked at right now, and we'll see how that plays out.
Now, there is some thought that the Trump administration could pull the waiver, but at this point, companies here in New York are just hoping a delay in its implementation until the cart catches up with the horse, as they say, Nikki.
Yeah, and Jen, didn't you report last week that Senator Jeremy Cooney from here in Rochester wrote a bill to delay the implementation of this?
Yeah, he did, Nikki. I tried to talk with him more about it, but he sent me a statement just saying that he's still committed to New York's green future, but also doesn't want commerce to come to a screeching halt because everyone needs electric semis and there's nowhere to charge them. So he said he prefers DEC just find a way to delay the enforcement, but they're waiting on California to do it. And if that doesn't happen, he says he will push for his bill to just delay the whole thing.
All right. Thank you, Jen.